Hello friends, welcome back to my channel. My name is Steph and we are doing a little vloggy vlog. I've just been casually vlogging recently, and today I don't know if I'm going to be continuing in series because I really want to read. Because I'm about to start The Traitor Queen, which is the second book in the Bridge Kingdom series. I recently read the first one for my book club on my Patreon. Really enjoyed it, had such a fun time, and now I'm ready to go into the second one. So this is what I'm picking up next. Otherwise, I do have a few things that I could pick up that are continuing in series. For example, I really need to finish the Plated Prisoner series, which, like, in all honesty, I should probably just pick that up in this video. I also have not picked up the Ashfire King yet, so that's something that I should probably pick up. I also need to move on in the Blood and Steel series. I don't remember what the second book is called, but it's the one by Helen Scher. I also need to move on with the Lady of Darkness series, but I'm kind of wanting to reread the first book. I don't know, I'm going back and forth. Which, speaking of Lady of Darkness, I need to move on with the Legacy series, but the final book recently got pushed, so am I going to do that? I don't know. And then the Book of Azrael, which I think the series is the God and Monsters series. That one, I need to move on with the second one, or I could just pick up whatever I want. I mean, that all being said, I am starting The Traitor Queen no matter what. So this is the second book in the Bridge Kingdom series. The Bridge Kingdom series, if you didn't know, is a interconnected series of duologies. So this book is going to, in theory, close out the couple that we have been following, named Laura and Aaron. And at the beginning of this book, Lauren and Aura get married as like a political marriage that is supposed to be the start of peace and this allegiance between the two kingdoms. Unfortunately for Oren, Laura has been trained her entire life to basically be a vessel, to be an assassin, to go to this kingdom as a bride and assassinate him. Her and her sisters have all been trained to do this, and essentially the king was raising the strongest assassin, and Laura happened to be it. So she ends up being the bride with the one goal in mind, that she's going to take down the Bridge Kingdom. And the Bridge Kingdom is basically the kingdom that is in control of all of the goods and imports that are going in and out of these different kingdoms. And so Laura's father really wants control over the bridge and all of its goods and resources, because the Bridge Kingdom, or the Ithacanians, have been depriving all the other kingdoms of their goods and their riches. So obviously Laura goes in with the intent of assassination, but it's a fantasy romance, so they do start to fall for each other, and Laura starts to see certain things that kind of go against what she's believed her entire life, which is like one of my favorite things in a book, when a character learns information, like new information that really rocks their worldview or changes their worldview. I love that. Some of my most favorite books in the world all have, I don't know if you would call it a trope, like a micro trope. I think it's just like a thing that happens to us in general, right? We get new information and sometimes it changes our entire worldviews. So book one ended on a really major cliffhanger, and I'm really looking forward to going into the second one and seeing like how that's resolved, and also just learning more about the Bridge Kingdom, also learning more about the imports and how the bridge works in general. That's one thing I will say about the first book that was a bit convoluted was the actual system within the bridge and like how it works and what is the bridge. The other thing I'll say about this is, so far as I know, in the first book there's no magic, which was an interesting revelation, and maybe I somehow missed that. But there's like no magic. Our characters do not possess magical abilities. So I'm curious what makes this a fantasy romance, other than it being set in a world that like doesn't exist. But there's so much of this world to explore. There's supposed to be 6 books in this series in total, I believe. They more recently recovered and reprinted all of these because it was picked up by a traditional publisher. And the 6th book, I don't remember when it's coming out, but it is coming out traditionally now. And I'm looking forward to figuring out who the next 2 couples are going to be. I thought that I had an idea of who the couples might be in this series, but now I'm questioning that. I'm thinking that that's not correct at all. But like I said, I'm looking forward to learning more about the worlds, if there's magic in this world, which I feel like there has to be, and how this fucking bridge works. Like, how does this bridge work? How do you work? I also really like the politics in here, so I want to see how that unfolds as well. And overall, I just really like Laura and Aaron as two separate individual characters, but also together. I like their romance and I like the way that they interact with one another. I also appreciate that Oren and Laura are pretty different. Like Laura was raised in such a way where she doesn't quite have her own personality, but yet does. And she also has like quite a bit of growth and learning that can happen for her character, whereas Oren has been a king for a while since his parents passed away, and he just is so, he just wants what's best for his kingdom and his people, and he's just like a guy. He's just a guy who happens to be a king, and he really wants the best for his kingdom. And so I just really like them as characters. I like following them. So if nothing else, I'm looking forward to diving back in and seeing what these two are up to and where this book is going to go and how it's going to wrap up, I guess. That's the one interesting thing about interconnected duologies is like things wrap up with these characters, but it's not quite an ending, you know? It's not quite a big wrap up because the politics and a lot of the plot lines are probably going to keep flowing through into the next two. I don't know. I don't know what I'm saying. I'm gonna go read this.
Take a train ride just to see you. Ride for hours just to please you. You don't know how much I need you, 'cause you're my home away from home, away from home, away from being alone. Run away from home, why don't you? 'Cause I did the same just for you. You don't know how much I love you, 'cause you're my home away from home, away from home, away from being alone. I don't wanna stay with you just to have to leave. If it isn't meant to be, you'll still be here eternally. I don't wanna say goodbye, I just arrived. If it isn't meant to be, you'll still be here eternally.
Oh my gosh, happy Sunday. It's Sunday. Today is so exciting because I'm actually going to be on the Book Troop Book Club live show with Gabi from Gabi Reads. We read a book that I always forget the title of. I think it's You Know What You Did. Is that what it's called? But I feel like I get it wrong every single time. And I was wrong. It's Tell Me What You Did by Carter Wilson. Yeah, we're discussing that. I read that earlier this week. I didn't vlog it because I knew we were going to do like a spoilery chat on her channel. But I will tell you, while I'm not rating things, this was a 2-star. I did not like this book. It started out really promising. I liked the premise. Basically, our main character, Poe, she has a crime podcast and she has people come on who have done some sort of crime, whether they murdered somebody, whether they stole something, etc. They come on and they basically admit their crimes on this podcast. She pre-records it just in case a video is boring, or if somebody dives into topics that she doesn't really want to put on the internet, or if somebody's trying to get on the podcast to like be famous or troll her in some way, she just won't air those episodes. And there's this one guy who ends up coming on the podcast and he says, "I'm the person who killed your mother." There's a lot of twists and turns, but for the most part, the reason this was 2 stars for me is I really didn't like the writing. It was super repetitive. It was very awkward at times, and I did not like the ways in which we explored certain things surrounding her mother's death. It made me feel extremely uncomfortable, and not in a way that horror and thrillers usually make me feel uncomfortable. It felt unnecessarily uncomfortable and a little bit gratuitous. And like I said, this book was so repetitive, and it was about 400 pages, if not a little over 400 pages. It absolutely did not need to be 400 pages. We were told the same exact things kind of over and over again in different flavors. And so it made this very tedious to get through, on top of just like not really connecting with the main character in any meaningful type of way, not really feeling empathetic or sympathetic towards the character. And I also felt like the twist, while I didn't call it by any means, just wasn't super surprising or inventive. And not that a twist always has to be super surprising and mind-blowing, but it wasn't even a twist that was like worth the effort of the book. So yeah, this just kind of maintains the fact that thrillers don't work very often for me. And I usually like things with the podcast element. The podcast element was utilized throughout the entirety of the book, but just not in ways that I was really interested in. So again, this was like a 2-star for me. Didn't really enjoy my time with this. Don't think I'll be checking anything else out by this author. I do want to read Listen for the Lie, I think is the one that a lot of people really liked that has a podcast element, because I did like A Good Girl's Guide to Murder, but that's more of a mystery than a thriller, I would say. And so I am interested in Listen for the Lie, but will I get to it anytime soon? I don't really know. However, I did pick up The Traitor Queen, like I said I was going to in this video, and I'm already loving it. I would say I'm like 100 pages in. I think that's chapter 17. Okay, I'm actually at chapter 19, and that's 106 pages into the book. I'm really loving it. This is going by so fast. The chapters are extremely short, and I like where this is going so far. I like what we're doing in this book so far. This is also going to be the conclusion to Laura and Oren's story within the Bridge Kingdom series. So in the next book, we're going to be following a different couple. I still don't know who it is, but I kind of have a clue because the title was mentioned in relation to this specific character. So I think that is who the next love interest, well, male love interest, is going to be. And I'm almost feeling like this is a definitive thing simply because of who this character is and their ties to both Oren and Laura. But yeah, so far this pretty much picks up where we left off in the first book, except now this is so much more fast-paced, and like I said, the chapters are much shorter. We're seeing a bunch of different characters being introduced or getting more page time. I'm really enjoying these new characters. I'm also really enjoying the characters that are getting page time, like their dynamics with Laura and Oren. I'm also glad that we're spending time with a specific character in this series that plays like a larger part, but sort of was in the background in the last book. And so in this book, to get like a closer glimpse at them and their motivations seems to be really important to the story, but also to making them more fleshed out. I have a lot of trouble sometimes with certain characters that are supposed to play like overarchingly a really huge role in a series, but then we only get glimpses of them from afar. But in here, we're actually starting to spend more time with them and starting to kind of learn their motivations more intimately, I guess you could say. So I'm glad to be getting that, because that was a weak point for me in the last book, and I was afraid it was going to continue to be a weak point in this book, but so far it's not. And I'm having such a good time. As soon as I jumped back into it, I was like, yes, this was the right thing to do. Also, as I mentioned, yesterday was Independent Bookstore Day, and I had an Earth Day festival that I had to be at for work, so I didn't end up going to Independent Bookstore Day of, but I went on Friday and I just never updated you. I also got some more Libro books from the Libro sale, because some of those books were just like $3. And who am I to say no? Who am I to say no to $3? So I ended up going to Vroman's because we were sort of in the area. We went to this vintage shop, which, by the way, we ended up finally getting some dining chairs. We got these vintage dining chairs that were reupholstered, and then we got these vintage bedside tables, and I'm absolutely in love with them. I really love mid-century modern. Not all of it, but most of it I love. And so that is the theme that you'll be seeing here. But because we went to that vintage shop, I was like, we should just go a little bit further and go to Vroman's a day early. And I don't know if I've like fully mentioned this yet, but because I got my Kobo and because of this move, and all these books, I'm trying not to really buy physical copies of books right now. I'm trying not to buy authors I haven't read currently until I read it and I get my trophy. I'm definitely not saying I'm not gonna buy books, like physical books, but I'm gonna be getting the trophies. That's what I'm trying to do. I won't lie, one of these, it's excessive, but this is who I am. I got Assassin's Quest, but I got the floppy boy because I'm trying to collect slowly. I'm trying to slowly collect the floppy editions, which is just like the US editions where they added the UK covers onto them, but they're floppy. But I've been collecting these because I want to start my Realm of the Elderlings reread and I want to annotate. And these are like the perfect books to annotate in. So that's why I'm getting them. And I've actually been having trouble finding Assassin's Quest and Romans had it, so I had to get it. And then obviously I got the 4th one in the Bridge Kingdom series because I'm loving this series so much that I wanted to get the 2nd duology. And I already bought the Inadequate Heir like a couple weeks ago, so I got this one. That's all I got physically. I restrained myself. There were lots of things that I really wanted, but I restrained myself. Audiobook wise, I did go feral, can't lie to you. So I got Hungerstone because Sapphic vampires, I think. Yeah, duh. I got How to Save Babylon because I've been really interested in this nonfiction. The Wedding People, the buzz about this really got me. I don't read a lot of literary fiction these days, but when I'm locked into a literary fiction, I usually love it. So I'm very excited about The Wedding People. I got This Could Be Us because I love Kennedy Ryan. I got The Coven. I'm just curious. I don't know if this one will work for me, but I'm very curious. And then I got The Har because I've seen nothing but amazing reviews about it and also how it makes people cry. And I'm just very curious. I'm very curious about that. I did get the Ashfire King that was not in the sale, but I ended up getting it during the sale. So, although I used a credit on it because I am like the biggest fan of Libro FM. I've been using them for like 4 years now and I can't quit them. I can't quit you, Libro. I also got I Who Have Never Known Men because this is another one that I've heard mostly really good things about. And lastly, I got the entirety of the Final Strife trilogy. I don't know if there's an actual name to this trilogy, but I got it because all of them were 3 dual hairs. Actually, I think they were 2 dual hairs because I get like a percentage off for being a member. And I think in total, all of the books that I bought were less than $30. I can't be sure because I did it in 2 transactions, but I'm pretty sure it was like less than $30. I just love you, Libro. All right, I'm gonna go and get ready to be on the live show. I'm very nervous, but I'm very excited. Okay, we just finished the live show. It was so much fun. I was very nervous to go on and be the only one who gave this book 2 stars, but it turned out a lot of people did not enjoy this book, so I was not alone. I'm also gonna link it down below if you want to hear spoilery thoughts, if you've read the book or if you just like have no interest in the book but want to hear spoilery thoughts about it. It was a really fun live show. But one of the things that I forgot to tell y'all that I really wanted to talk about was I found a new video game. I don't know if you've been around long enough to know my obsession for Life is Strange. This is Life is Strange. It's basically like a game where it's more of this storyline that's unfolding. You're playing as this character and making decisions that affect the outcome of the game. So for example, in the first game in Life is Strange, there are 2 endings that you can get for the game, depending on the decisions you've made leading up to the ending. So there have been, I want to say like 6 to 7 different installments of this game, whether it's like full main games or just DLCs. And I've pretty much played them all. The only one that I have not been able to get through is the second main game where it's the 2 brothers. And that's just because the traveling element to it hasn't been holding my interest. So I keep telling myself I'm gonna go back to it and then I play it and I stop playing after like an hour. The thing I think is fun and kind of endearing about Life is Strange is that the writing is a bit cheesy, the dialogue is a bit cheesy, but the actual plot and overall storylines end up being really, really emotional and very compelling. And they're usually these really intense coming of age stories that have like a murder mystery element to it. More recently, the first game, the character Max, who you were following in that game, ended up getting a second main game. And I played it, so excited, and I was very disappointed by it. And before you go into that game, just know that they split it into 2. They split it into 2, so you do not get a definitive ending in this game installment that costs the same price as a regular game. There's going to be a part 2. But I recently learned that the writers and like developers of Life is Strange, they ended up leaving Square Enix and making another Life is Strange type game, but it has new characters and like new features because Square Enix owns the rights to Life is Strange. So I'm not even sure at this point. I need to look further into it. I'm not even sure now if this new sequel for Max was written by any of these people, because let me tell you, the writing was also very bad in it. And I'm a little bit suspicious about the writing process for that. So I'm curious if the writing was even any of these people, because the timeline in which the new game came out with Max for Life is Strange and the timeline of this new game that these writers like for sure created, they're like very close together, which makes me think that they didn't write for the new Life is Strange, which I'll look up and like fact check later. But I want to talk about this because I've been playing the new game. It's called Lost Records Bloom and Rage, and you're following this whole new set of characters. They're teenagers in the 90s, but it's giving like Yellow Jackets vibes, and I've not finished Yellow Jackets, so I cannot say for sure if it's comparable, but I've seen like half of the first season of the Yellow Jackets. It is giving that vibe so heavily. And again, I know that it has to be the writers because this is so reminiscent of the first Life is Strange with Max, where the writing is very cheesy and it's very coming of age, but the storyline itself is so interesting and it's keeping me going. And I think it's gonna have like a horror twist to it rather than like a mystery twist. And I'm just really having a good time. And I needed this because I haven't really been playing games. And as you know, or maybe don't know, hi, I'm a gamer. Kidding. I play a lot of games. Like normally something for me that's relaxing is just like playing games and listening to my audiobooks. That's like a big hobby of mine. And so I haven't really been playing games. This caught my attention, and while some of it is really cheesy and some of the acting is not the best, I'm having such a good time and it's reminding me so much of Life is Strange. And I was really sad about the direction of the Life is Strange franchise, but now that I know this whole situation has happened and now Lost Records exists, I'm hoping that they keep going the way that they were with Life is Strange. It says Lost Records Bloom and Rage is a narrative adventure game. So I guess that's the like official title of what this type of game is. Developed by Don't Nod, the creators of Life is Strange. The game is set in 1995 and follows 4 teenage girls, Swan, Nora, Autumn, and Kat, as they form a punk band and navigate a summer of self-discovery. 27 years later, the women are reunited by fate to confront a secret from their past. Players take on the role of Swan, a quiet movie enthusiast who struggles with her identity. So that is a fun part about the game. When you are younger Swan, you are filming this movie. And some of it is like documentary style of her life, and she's getting ready to move to Canada, but she made all these new friends, and this is like the first time in her life that she's had a solid friend group. And so she's like documenting all those times, and she's documenting her favorite places in this town before she moves. But we also know that something happened that summer, and you get to record a lot of these parts as the player. So like you're helping make this documentary, and you can watch it back and you can like edit the clips together in whatever way that you find necessary. Sometimes you're supposed to do like very specific things to make the documentary. So it's not obviously as unique to you because there are specific things that you have to film, but like the way in which you film them, the style in which you film them, like can all be different. And I think that's really fun, and you can like watch back the things that you filmed. And it's a big part of the narrative within the story. A lot of these little documentaries are telling us a bigger story that happened that summer that is a little more sinister and scary. And so I think it's gonna have a horror twist to it, or like paranormal maybe, but I don't know. And I'm excited to find out. But like I said, it's reminding me a little bit of Yellow Jackets, and it's making me want to watch Yellow Jackets. But like, can I balance watching The Last of Us with Yellow Jackets? I don't know if I can handle that. That seems like diabolical behavior. Why would I do that to myself? Anyway, I think I'm gonna go on a walk. I think I'm gonna go on a walk and maybe continue reading on that walk, unless Jared goes with me on that walk, and then we will walk and talk. The moment I sat down, it started raining. It's raining. So here's the thing. It's almost May. It's gonna be May. And I usually in May get back into my reading groove. The summer, I probably do the best with my reading. Like I'm usually in the biggest reading mood in the summer. And so I'm hoping that the start of May ignites something in me. I want to be a reader again, and I'm already feeling it, But funny story is that I'm like pivoting in what I want to read, which makes sense. Like usually in the warmer months or getting towards the warmer months, I want to read horror and thrillers and like weird girl fiction. But now, because I'm a pretty big contemporary romance reader at this point, I'm also looking forward to reading some contemporary romances this summer. And I'm already feeling the vibes. The vibes are leaning towards me being a reader. So I'm going to be really delusional in May, and I'm going to try to read a lot. Just for May, maybe even June. What about July? August, possibly? So let's manifest and be delusional together, but you need to manifest for me because something's broken with my manifestations. Something is completely broken with them, and I'm not going to attempt it. I'm done manifesting for the year because the opposite seems to always happen, and it's probably my fault. I'm probably doing it wrong, but like someone else, you need to manifest for me, and please help me out. I finished this. I love this series. I think the second book was even better than the first book, and I already had a really good time, but the pacing of this one was really fun. It's very quick. You just want to keep turning the pages. I really liked the character development. I liked the relationship development. I liked getting to know a lot of the side characters / getting new side characters that have entered into the story. I'm really curious if they're going to continue to be, side characters within the story. Who actually knows? But this definitely wraps up in a way that makes you want to move on with the next book. The couple obviously has their like ending, although that's a bit open-ended as well. So I like that because there was no definitiveness to this duology, which I prefer because I think I said before with the Crowns of Nyaxia series, although there isn't like the cleanest ending to the first duology, the second duology feels so vastly different than the first one that I was afraid that maybe this series would do that as well. But the way that this ended and the fact that there are a lot of loose ties that need tying up makes me excited to see what we're going to be doing next, because there were some great conclusions that I was happy to see this early on. But now I'm like, okay, where are we going politically? Because there were huge shifts in this book that are going to change the course of many of these characters' lives and trajectories and change the politics within this world and these kingdoms. So I can't wait to dive into the next duology. I thought that I would take this a little bit slower, like reading the next duology, but I feel like I might want to read it next month. The only thing is, the third duology, which I think is the last duology within this world, the sixth one isn't out yet, and it doesn't come out till January. So I don't know how fast I want to get through these. But yeah, this is a really great conclusion to the duology. I love these two main characters. But like I said before, they're not the characters that are gonna like live rent free in my head, but I really enjoyed being with them, and I really enjoyed their development and just how different they were, but how they made their relationship work. I also absolutely loved the last like 5% of this. It was so good. And the last couple lines, so good. I will miss being in their heads, but I'm also very excited about who the next couple is, which I have officially figured out. I will not spoil it for you. Although I did accidentally find out who the last couple is gonna be, but I'm trying to forget. That. I don't really know what I want to read next, which I was actually thinking the Plated Prisoner series, but for some reason that sounds so unappealing at the moment. So I may just come back to you when I finally start something else. If I start something else. So I closed last night. I closed at work last night, and I woke up late this morning because for whatever reason, like my closes, we get off at 9 and then I have to be back into work at 9. So it's not like I don't have enough time to like sleep between shifts. There's just something about my anxiety and me getting off at 9 and then having to be back in the morning. I'm like so afraid I'm gonna be late or that I'm gonna oversleep. And then today I overslept. But luckily I actually wasn't that late. I was like 15 minutes late. So, but I'm on my lunch break right now. I ended up going and grabbing some food from this cafe that I really love that has soups and sandwiches. So I'm about to scarf that down in a second. But I wanted to come on here and tell you that I was in a horror mood and I decided to start Bat Eater and Other Names for Cora Zhang. Is that the whole title? By Kylie Lee Baker, which is also the Literally Dead Book Club pick, which I'm very excited about because I don't often get to tune in to any of the live shows because I never read the books on time. So I'll actually get to go to the live show and watch. But so far I'm like 10% into the book and I already love it. I love the writing. I wouldn't say I love the situation.
it's a COVID book, and our main character sees her sister die. And her sister's death was due to racist motivations. It's during 2020, right when the pandemic is starting. So the situation is racially motivated based off what's happening with the pandemic. And it was actually very, very gory. It was very intense. This book is pretty intense so far. And I feel like our main character, Cora, she witnessed the death and it triggered some like OCD habits in her, especially cleanliness habits in her. And there are some things that she talks about in the beginning of this book that are so relatable to me. It's a little much. But no, I'm like really, really enjoying this book, and I think this is the pivot that I needed. I want to read horror and weird girl fiction, so I'm glad that I picked this up because I was definitely in the mood for it.
Let's turn on that Huey. What about pink? Ooh, pink is kind of giving. Let's do pink today. Okay. We got Perp Derp and Pinky Pop. I come to you looking rough and feeling rough. I have had a terrible migraine all day today, but what that meant was I didn't end up going to work today because I could barely look at a screen. So I ended up laying in bed for hours. I think I was in bed till 10:30, 11, which I never do. That's just like not something I do anymore. I used to love laying in bed for as long as I possibly could, but these days I'm like, I have to be out of bed by 9 o'clock at the latest. And even that is pushing it for me, or I feel like I'm wasting the day, which is so funny because like a lot of the times I just end up in here or on the couch, but it feels different somehow. But yeah, today I ended up laying in bed till like 10:30, 11, and then I got up and laid on the couch with Jared. He was playing some games and I continued listening to Bat Eater and Other Names for Corzang, and I finished it and I absolutely loved this. I don't know if this is a full 5 stars for me. It is one of those things that I feel I'm gonna have to sit on because it made me very emotional. I actually cried a lot at this book because there is a ton of grief in here, but there's also a lot of racism that you're seeing on page, and it's just so difficult to stomach. Even the author's note got me, and in the author's note she is talking about this being a pandemic book and kind of why she chose to write a pandemic book, but how the scariest part of the book is the hope that our main character feels at the very beginning about the pandemic, you know, coming and going in just a few months, right? And I think that was the other hard part about this book, was just being immersed into the pandemic and that way of thinking again. Not that that's ever left me, especially somebody with OCD. If anything, certain things got worse for me and are habits that I continue to this day and like can't break. And so I really saw myself reflected a lot in our main character in that way. And I think this book encapsulates so many feelings that so many of us had during the pandemic, and just a wide variety of feelings that people were experiencing based on their own situations. And up until this point, I've kind of avoided pandemic books, not that there are a ton, but I have avoided most books that like explicitly talk about being set in the pandemic or like dealing with our pandemic, because I wasn't really sure how I would react to it. But in this book, I don't know. I just really loved being in Cora's head. I really enjoyed her as a character. She's a character that really, really grows on you, and you're kind of uncertain where her storyline is gonna go. Also, when we meet Cora later, she is part of a crime scene investigation crew that cleans up the crime scenes. And there are 2 other people on this cleanup team who slowly but surely become her friends. They also become quite an integral part in her starting to face everything that she's experienced during the pandemic. And I really, really liked their dynamic. There was some levity with these characters in Korra where there were funny things that were said between one another, or there were funny things that they witnessed together. So while this book is extremely heavy, there are those moments of levity which I really appreciated and I don't think would have been capable without these two integral characters. And also I think they were just like an important part for Korra starting to face, you know, her PTSD and all that she's experienced. But while they are cleaning up these crime scenes, they start to notice a pattern and they think that there's a serial killer who is specifically targeting Chinese people. And this is where the book starts to really take off in an unexpected direction for me, because I thought that this book was going to go in a very different direction with our main character and her mental health, but it took a vastly different turn that I ended up appreciating so much. But ultimately, it's a pretty sad book. Like, there are moments of hope in it, but I think it made its point very well, and I just appreciated the writing, I appreciated the characters, I appreciated the messaging, even down to the author's note. I also think Kylie Lee Baker has a gift for horror writing. She can do the blood and guts so well and like in very compelling ways that gets under your skin. On the reverse end of that, I also think that she's really great at discussing identity issues as well, because the other thing about Korra that she is struggling with is that she's half white, half Chinese, and so she doesn't really feel like she belongs or that she has a voice in anything that's happening, but somehow she feels that it's left up to her to figure out what's going on and to also find her sister's killer, because they were never able to identify him. So there's a lot on her shoulders, and I think that Kylie Lee Baker does a really great job of compelling characters dealing with their identities and not feeling like they have a place in this world because they're balancing on the precipice of two different identities and not knowing where they belong and not actually feeling like they belong on either side. I am really glad though that she has finally started writing in adult fiction, because I feel like she could write a pretty intense horror, and I hope that's what's next. Anyway, I'm off to go read some more weird girl fiction and horror, and I will see you in the next vlog. Bye friends!